Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of DropKick Podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. She's a broadcast personality.
She has her very own podcast, which is called What's on Georgia's Mind. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere that you listen to your podcasts.
She's also part of the Hart family.
And she is the daughter of the late, great British Bulldog.
Please help me welcome at this time, Georgia Smith. How are you doing today, Georgia?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm so happy to be a part of this podcast, and I feel like it's something near and dear to my heart. And Are you guys fellow Canadians as well?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So it just works out. I don't do podcasts often. This is probably like my third one in maybe like 5 years. I decline them all because it's usually the same type of thing. But when you mentioned, it's about connecting with mental illness and things like that, I respond to that. And because I suffer with anxiety and things like that. So I felt like this was just something unique, and I think it's becoming more aware. People are becoming more aware of it. And I was happy to talk to you guys about it.
For sure. How's quarantine been for you?
It's been okay, actually. I feel like if I had like unlimited money and like the gyms had been open, it probably would have been okay. There was like nothing.
I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. But I've got my brother, luckily, so we've just been kind of keeping each other occupied and binge watching things and getting fat. Well, he's not. I am. Overall, it's been okay. It's just kind of made me like appreciate things more, and it just kind of shows you that things that we were stressing about so much doesn't really matter. If that makes sense, like just that, and it's like we've got our health. I've got my family, and that's what I felt like was important to me.
For sure, yeah. Family comes first, in terms of this whole pandemic thing. And it makes you really realize, what's important and the things we shouldn't take for granted. And,
Exactly.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of family, you are actually part of one of the most legendary wrestling families of all time. And you are the daughter of a legendary wrestler, the British Bulldog. So what are some of your fondest memories with your father?
Fondest memories? I actually did an interview today, and they were asking me about that. And the thing is like growing up, I didn't really see my dad often because my brother and I just saw him on TV. So that's why I refer to my dad as Davey, because that's what he Davey. And then when he'd come home, my mom would call him Davey. So he was Davey, and then I'd call him Diamondite, a Dynamite when I was. And I remember Matilda a bit. My brother would have a better memory of her. But I just remember traveling with my dad a lot. Like, he included my brother and I in all of his big events, which was really fun. And I got to experience being on an airplane super young. That's why I'm just probably have ear problems because of it now, coughing all the time. But I remember like walking Winston into the arena. I think it was in Anaheim, WrestleMania 7, like just walking him like to the backstage. And that I forgot that. I just thought that was really cool. He wasn't really receptive to me, but when my dad got the leash, he was like, "Oh, you're who I go with." But like a dog. Oh my God. So what else was there? I remember like being at Wembley Stadium. My brother and I being there when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I just like remember bits of that, but that was really fun. And going from Goulburn to where my dad's from to London on the train for that was exciting. And my brother and I were in the nosebleed seats, the royal boxes. The ring was like that big, and it was just really exciting. And then leading up to the later 90s with the In Your House, the Canadian Stampede. That was probably like the loudest event I've ever been to, like the craziest. And looking back on it now, that was probably the last time my family was like united, like where we were all the same age, all, getting along, all positive. Sure. And then it kind of went downhill after that, unfortunately. But I had a really good childhood growing up, and I was lucky to have the dad that I did. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get to see him as often as I did, but, kids at school were like, "Wow, that's your dad." And, it's point.
Yeah, I mean, life's pretty good when your dad's, the British Bulldog. So absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of him a little bit and his legacy, what does it mean for you and your brother and the rest of your family for him to be inducted into this year's, Hall of Fame? How is that for you? What was your initial reaction to that?
My initial reaction, I was just speechless. because my brother, he pulled a little false finish on us when he told us. I went to go to H&R Block to do something. He texted me and he's like, "Oh, I've got some really good news. What champagne should we get?" And I was like, "Huh? Okay." And then he was kind of hinting like maybe he was getting signed with AEW or something. And I was like, "Oh." And then he's like, "So yeah, I think I'm going to go with them." And I was like, we're sitting down. I was like, "Okay, all right. Well, that's positive. That's good news." And then he got my mom on the FaceTime and he got us all three. And he's like, "So I got good news." And he's like, "Well, Davey's going into the Hall of Fame." And I was like, "What? What about the everything?" He's like, "Well, I needed you to make sure you were here for this call. And like, we were all together and I wanted all of us, you guys to know at the same time." I was like, this is like one surprise and that wasn't real. It was like, oh my God. And I was just speechless. I was like, You're joking me. He's like, "No, it's happening." And I was just like, wow. I just could have cried because it's just something that I've been waiting for well, obviously everybody's been waiting for so long. And I was really hoping it was going to happen because it was going to be in Tampa and where we live and my dad lives. I was just, I still can't believe it's happening, and I'm so grateful that WWE they've allowed it to happen, and they thought, right, this is the time to do it. And WWE has their rhyme and reason for doing things, and some people may have been like it's long overdue, but things happen the way they're meant to. And
absolutely,
I'm glad that it's happened, and my dad's being recognized for his contributions, and he worked so hard for everything that he did.
Absolutely, yeah.
So long, and I feel like he's in his rightful place. And I can't wait till the day that can actually walk the stage and do it.
Absolutely, yeah. Better late than never, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So we actually had fellow Hart family member Tyson Kidd on the podcast for an interview, and he said that Owen Hart was probably the funniest member of the Hart family, and he had the most ribs. So whether it's Owen or anybody, what do you think is the funniest memory or prank or rib that anyone in the Hart family has done?
Oh boy, there's like so many. I mean, honestly, my brother, he keeps me laughing a lot, like during this whole quarantine with making those old prank calls to people. That's just like what Owen did. And I don't know if you guys have seen on my dad's Instagram page, but I have, if you go down like maybe till like August time, I've got a video of an Owen and Davey prank that you guys should listen to. So that one's
I'll definitely
funny.
check.
That one's pretty
I'll check it out.
So listen to that because I can't do it justice.
Absolutely. But I was watching one of your interviews last night, and in a previous interview you talked about going backstage, as you mentioned earlier, and what was that like, going backstage at your first like WWE event or whatever? What was your first impression of Vince McMahon? Was he intimidating?
To be honest, I didn't really ever like see Vince because he was doing his own thing. It was only like when he'd call the house to speak to my dad, and I'd be like, "That's Vince McMahon." Like, you can't not know his voice. And whenever I get the call, because my dad would be kind of like, "I'm busy. I don't want to talk to anybody right now," and I'd be like, "Well, you got Vince McMahon on the phone. You kind of got to answer this." So I would only hear like that, and then it wasn't until I like properly really saw him at Owen's funeral, and he was nice. And all the times I've seen him after that, he's been nice. I remember after my dad's funeral, we all had like a group discussion. It was like me, my mom, Harry, Jim Ross, Natty, TJ, Stephanie, Hunter, and Vince. Yeah, that was all in one room backstage. And Vince was just talking about like, I don't even know how the conversation came up, but how he struggled so much in school and trying to be like what his dad wanted, and getting the marks, and how hard he was on him trying to do good in school. His dad was, and how like, he had like a legit learning disability. And I don't know that, but Vince has like, he's got like dyslexia, and like he can't, I think he's got like ADD, which makes sense because he's always
all over the place, man.
Doing things. But I was just like, wow, because I really struggled in school, and I was always like, felt bad that like I didn't do as well as I wanted, or maybe as well as like my mom had hoped at one point in time. And I was just like, and it was just nice to hear him say that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you can relate with someone like Vince, you know, Vince McMahon, I think that says something, because it's like, oh, he's actually human, you know, he actually, you know, goes through these things, and it's like, okay, like I can, you know, feel a bit comfortable, you know, about what I'm going through, and it's like, you know, a mutual understanding of both sides. So
yeah,
absolutely.
I had asked him, I said, what advice do you have for me, like with school? Because like I just don't get it, like I don't seem to fit in, I don't seem to. And he's like, it gets better over time, and like you'll find your own path, like even if you have to hate it. And
that's
he's
amazing,
right.
because like even like not even just Vince, like a lot of us, we seem to forget that even the wrestlers, like they seem so larger than life, but they're people just like us, and they've all had similar struggles. So like hearing something like that, it's really good to hear. But
yeah.
So I'm curious, do you have any aspirations of stepping in the ring and wrestling one day, or have you ever had aspirations?
No, they asked me that question earlier today too. No, I think I'm a little too old for that. But I just never had that desire to get into the ring. It was always something that like Harry had the passion for. Like you got Harry playing with his wrestling dolls, and you got me playing with my Barbies. Like that was his thing, and you know, and that was something him and my dad bonded over. And like, you know, Harry's made to wrestle. Like he's, you know, third generation pedigree, 6'5", 270. Like that is his DNA. Where with me, I mean, it just never really clicked with me. And like at an early age, or like in my teens, my dad just kind of like made clear to me, like, that's not something I want my daughter to do. Like it was more of a male dominated sport, you know, back in the early 2000s, you know, prior to that. And, I mean, maybe if women's wrestling today was how it was, like, if we could go back to and make it like how it was then, maybe I would have, like, if I had Natty to look up to, like as a teen, oh, that's what I want to do. But at the time, it wasn't like that.
Right.
So it was,
Absolutely.
You know, like puppies and stuff like that, matches, which it was like, no, that's not going to be happening.
Yeah, sure.
And also, like, like I had said earlier to another interview, like it takes a special type of person to want to do that, because it's a lot. And some
absolutely.
like, oh, they just go in there and it's nothing and it's all fake. No. Like you have to, the travel schedule, the in-ring, you have to, it's like working in your head. Trying to be quick, you know, on your feet, and memorizing, and like, and, you know, making sure it looks good. And you've got all these different cameras and all these different angles that you have to keep in mind of what's going to go over with the crowd. It's just like, I know obviously like I'm just an overthinker, and I just have anxiety as it is. So it just wouldn't be a good combination, if I'm honest. But I give credit. I commend anybody, man or woman, who steps in there and gives it their all, because it's not easy.
For sure, it takes a lot, you know, mentally and physically, you know. But
definitely. But like speaking of mentally, on our podcast, as we said earlier, we really like to tap into mental health because we feel it's something that a lot of people struggle with. So if you're comfortable, of course, have you ever struggled with your mental health, and do you have any advice for people who are watching that could be struggling?
Yes. Well, I've struggled with like anxiety for, oh God, I don't know how many years now, but I think it all kind of triggered like when my dad died. And there was just like with Owen, and then prior to that, it was my cousin Matt, who died at a young age at 13. And then it was Owen, and then my grandmother, and then my aunt, my grandma, that's my dad's mom, and my dad's sister. They died like 3 months apart. Which I think it really affected my dad. And then it was like my dad happened, and then my grandpa happened, and I'm just kind of like always expecting like the worst with life in general. Like I'm always expecting the worst outcome, because it's like, oh, well, this has happened, like this, no good's going to happen. Or I just think the worst, and that's not a good way to think. But I think as well as like, we just can't have that. I don't want to say that victim mentality, but it's like,
Right.
you know, dad wouldn't want me to be sitting around dwelling and not getting up out of bed and like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you just gotta make it work. And I feel like what's really helped me is like physical activity.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think I get the best ideas when I'm working out, and I think I release a lot of endorphins. And I think like, what would Davey do? Because my dad wouldn't sit around and be dwelling. His Owen died, his sister died, his mom died. My dad wasn't just sitting around. My dad was like, let me get up, let me go to work, let me do this, let me work out. And when you have a mindset like that, and I know sometimes it's easier said than done, and it can be kind of like unrealistic, but just try it. Just take one step at a time. You know what I mean? To plan
For sure.
things. And
Right.
it makes a big difference. And I think as well as limit your time on social media.
Yeah. There's so much toxicity going around nowadays, especially now, because like, you know, like you go on Twitter and it's a, you know, shit show, because like all these allegations are coming out, and it's just like, you know, it's terrible, you know, for the people that I know personally that went through it. You know, it sucks for them, but you know, my support's with them. But again, like I'm with you on that 100%. You know, social media plays such a big factor, and you know, contributing to, you know, terrible mental health and everything. But yeah, like again, I think the law of attraction really plays a big part. For sure, because I think what you put out in the universe, like if you put good thoughts out, then I think that comes back to you in a good way. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Totally. I feel like that too. And I feel like my dad had that mindset, like you get what you put in.
Yeah.
If you just put out there, like for example, working out and doing things for yourself, or, you know, maybe like limiting your time on social media and putting like maybe writing in a journal. I know it's like writing in a journal, whatever, but it might help. It might help somebody. Or like get an adult coloring book, or if you just like want to do your makeup, or just do things that make yourself make you feel better.
Right.
But sometimes social media, like you were saying, sometimes it's just so toxic. Right. And it's just unreal. And with some people, I mean, even me, like I'll see something, I'll be like, whoa, like that really fine. But what I would suggest is if you get people that attack you, block them or delete them and don't look at it again.
For sure, yeah. You know, it's great that we have a block button nowadays, you know, instead of like back then, because I feel like if you had social media in the 90s, you know, it would be worse, because, you know, I think wrestling was, you know, in the Attitude Era, of course, and I mean, you couldn't imagine what people had to say about like some of the things, but
man,
you know,
like, yeah, especially like with the way that the business was, like imagine like Sean and Brett going at it on Twitter.
I know. I know. And I feel like my dad like would not even take it seriously. Like he would just be like, okay, well, I'd like to see them do what I'm doing.
I mean, that's how it should be. Absolutely. Right? Because if people give crap to like other wrestlers, like, oh, that's fake, then, you know, why don't you come try it for yourself, see how it feels, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but like if it was that easy, everybody would go to the WWE and make their millions. But in reality, it's not. So.
It's not. And I'm glad you guys appreciate the sport for what it is, because I deal with so many people on a daily basis that are like, oh, so your brother does the fake stuff. And I'm like,
yeah, about that.
Say that to his face.
About that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But like once again, if you're comfortable sharing, do you have any idea what common mental health struggles your father or any wrestler could have gone through while on that intense schedule?
I think my dad dealt with depression. I think he dealt with that, but I didn't really realize that till like later on, and I don't know. I think my dad, he did have anxiety, and I think that's where I get it from. I think it's genetically from him. My mom she's more depressed, but my dad, I think, in school and stuff, he was diagnosed with anxiety, and I think he struggled with that, but then got into wrestling, which helped him. Again, an outlet, because I think he was kind of hanging around with like the bad crowds growing up, and then he found wrestling, and it kind of changed for his life for the better. Sure. But that was he had a lot of depression, obviously, after with with his sister and his mom and Owen. And I think things affected him like that one night only. Like I know it was like just a match or, but I think that really, I don't think my dad kind of looked at wrestling the same after that, if that makes sense. And I think that kind of deeply hurt him. I think he had moved on and stuff, and he had gone back to WWE after that. But I think at that point in time, he was just like,
of course, it's family. So,
like just kind of was like, whatever, just kind of, and when you get to that point of like, when you love something so much and you just kind of don't care, that's when you know it's not a problem.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is you gotta be self-aware. You gotta ask yourself like, hey, is this really worth the time and worth my body? Because you're going out there, you're bumping in the ring. It's not only TV. There's house shows, and people don't really take that in. There's like, oh yeah, they wrestle on TV, like on Raw or SmackDown or whatever now, right? Or even back then. But now there's always been house shows, and people don't understand that. I think the mental toll is another, and the physical toll is another. And if you combine the two, you get a lot on your plate. And I think people should really respect that. Not just for the people in the ring, like people in the business, like people who are writing Monday Night Raw. Like you got to write a 4-hour show or whatever it is, like 3 hours now. But yeah, like it takes a lot. Absolutely,
it's demanding.
Yeah. And especially if fans don't like it, they'll, chew it back out and just spit it right in your face. And that's sometimes the harsh reality. But I think people just got to remember, like, hey, if I don't know that person personally, then why should I take it personally? You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, social media can, play a big factor in mental health. But it can also be an amazing place and also a toxic place, for instance. Many people in the public eye deal with cyberbullying and a lot of hate. What do you do to block the hate, for instance? Have you ever had an issue with that?
Oh yeah, I get it like every day. I get it like it's not funny, but it is funny. But I just think when somebody spews hate to somebody they don't know, that's saying something about them.
For sure.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's not, and it's just saying and I'm like, what could you possibly have so much hate that you hate me so much that you tell me this, this, and this, and it's like, oh, because they're mad,
right?
They're mad. And it's like clearly I have something that they don't have, or they're just but normal, regular, happy people don't talk like that to other people, whether it's in person or online. But these people they've got nothing but time on their hands, and when you go out of your way to do that and to write, that's something not right there. And
absolutely,
it's something about you.
Yeah, hate.
People should look at it.
Yeah, hate doesn't come from a good place, because someone suffering from something, they'll take it on another person. They'll put them down. Where they are, and it's not a good thing. But absolutely. But to wrap things up, one more question. Now, what's the next chapter for Georgia Smith?
The next chapter for me, well, at this point, anything. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I have no idea. And this pandemic, unfortunately, seems to be getting worse here in Florida, which is a bit scary. I don't know if things are going to be going backwards soon. I don't know.
Hope not. Yeah.
Social media seeing that this person's got corona, this person's got corona, and it's oh God. And where I'm at is a hot spot. So, I mean, I honestly don't know, but I've been just trying to put all of my energy into things positive things, like my dad's page, because that brings me happiness, and it brings other people happiness.
Absolutely.
It fulfills me, and I don't want to let my dad down, and I don't stop running his, the Bulldog brand, and I want to keep growing. And he's got his website's going to open on Monday. I've been working tuned, folks. That. Yes, stay tuned. DavyBulldog.com. Because on Instagram, I started that. It's my little baby, and I can only do so much on it. And people ask, we want merchandise, we want this. So it's going to have my dad's diet. It's going to have his workout. It's going to have his workout DVD. It's going to have a UK store for items, and it's going to have a US store for items. It's going to have news. Do you want to say hi? Oh, my brother's just packing over here. I don't know if he's got a seminar coming up in Orlando.
I heard about that.
Did you see that? Yeah, so he's excited about that. I'm really excited about that, and I've got a really good team helping me with it. And I feel like right now I'm kind of like backed in a corner I'm limited to what I can do. You know, I'm like stuck at home, so it's like I wanna do something for my dad and for my family.
Absolutely.
And I'm really excited to be doing that, and I feel like I'm chipping away. You know, it's taking one step at a time, and hopefully, you know, when it can lead to better things into the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a cool thing to get it ready, and and I started my dad's Instagram page last January. I kind of wasn't in a good place in my life, and I wanted to just do something. There was no platform for my dad.
Right.
And there was lots of tribute pages and things for him, but I felt like there wasn't enough. And when I made this page for him, it was kind of like a healing process for me, in regards to like posting things of my dad every day. Like, I felt closer to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Now it's grown.
It's grown.
So much. Yeah, as you guys can see. And it's opened up different opportunities and business ventures for me that I had no idea. I didn't expect anything from it. I didn't think Hall of Fame would happen from it. I didn't think all these things, but it's like I just did something positive and just took it day by day. And, you know, you just never know what's going to happen.
For sure. You know, you plant the seed and watch it grow overnight and keep watering that seed. And you never know what happens. And, you know, here we go, Hall of Fame. And hopefully, you know, everything works out. But we like to play a game with everybody on our show, and you have to describe the 10 people that we list off in one word or in one sentence.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, the British Bulldog.
So you want me to think of something to go with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can use a word or a sentence.
Okay. So any word.
Yeah.
Okay. Flag.
Bret Hart.
Canada.
Davey Boy Smith Jr.
Jiu-jitsu.
Owen Hart.
Comedy.
Brian Pillman.
Curly.
Brian Pillman Jr.
Mullet.
Shawn Michaels.
Heartbreak.
Tyson Kidd.
Quick.
Stu Hart.
Strong.
And last but not least, Natalia.
Fierce.
Well, that's wow.
Yeah.
But thank you for taking
so
the time
much.
out of your day to, you know, join us and make this happen. You know, like I said for recording, I didn't expect it, but we really appreciate this for sure. And where can we find you on social media?
You can find me. I'm on Twitter at GeorgiaSmith87. I'm on Instagram at GeorgiaJSmith. And I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/GeorgiaSmith7. I like 7 because it's the year I was born. I use that number a lot. I think that's it, really. And then you can follow my dad's Instagram. He's got at the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith. And he's also got a Twitter, which is @ Davey Boy Smith. And then he's got a Facebook, which is just Davey Boy Smith. But yeah, I've been trying to grow his other social medias.
We just got to keep on growing.
Everybody,
Yep.
go check it out, everyone. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.